Welcome to the Warrior Woodshop. My name is Mr. Rodaway. I'm one of the instructors at Fox High School. And in this video, what we're going to do is it's a tutorial video on how to use Vcarve Pro. This is one of two tutorials. This one is for the sign making video. If you want to do our router tray or serving tray tutorial on Vcarve Pro, look up our other Vcarve Pro tutorial. What this video is going to do or go over is how to make the sign. The sign's going to have some text. It's going to have a border using the square or shaping tool. And then we're going to import a graphic logo that goes with the sign and convert it over so the ShopBot CNC program can read it. If that's what you're interested in, you're in the right place. You're going to see at the bottom in the timeline, there's going to be some bookmarks. So if you're not going to put a border on your design, or you're not going to put a graphic, or you're doing the graphic only, jump to the section you need. The last section of the video will then go over how to create that or convert that drawing file to a coordinate file. Remember X, Y, Z plotting you all did in middle school, thought you'd never use it. But the last section pertains to all the projects, so we need to convert it from a drawing file over to a CNC. So let's get the file or the software opened up and let's get started making our sign. All right, this video is meant to be a tutorial, so you're going to watch a little section, pause it, and then move on up, complete that step and move on to the next one, then pause again. So first thing you want to do is open up the Vcarve Pro software. Remember, this is software, not a web application, so plan your sign accordingly so that way you have time to do it in one of the lab computers or one of the portable laptops that we have in the shop. If you notice, every file that this computer had used in this software earlier in the day or the week is in a recent folder. So you want to make sure that when yours shows up here that you have a backup, so that way the next student doesn't accidentally delete it or modify it against your wishes. So make sure you keep a backup. So we want to create a new file, and the job setup menu will be what shows up. This will come up with the last person's settings. So you really should only have to change the size of your board if it's not correct, but let's go through all the settings just so you're aware of what needs to be done, and then you can hit pause and get your setup. Single-sided on the job type. You're going to want to change or use the size that's available. Most students will hit 6x18 for a router sign, and if you notice, it went vertical because of the way it's laid out. X is your horizontal and Y is your vertical or up and down. So if you want a horizontal sign, make sure you put the 18 in first. A 6x18 sign is less than 1 board foot. So that meets the no cost requirement in class. You go anything larger than that, you'll have to pay the upcharge for more material. The thickness we use is 0.75. The 0 position should be on the top of the board. If it happens to be machine beds clicked, go ahead and hit material surface. A lot of times that's already there. XY datum means the 00 location if you happen to see it in a different place. We don't want to use negative numbers, so we want 00 to be in the bottom left. Resolution is the fastest, and it's just defaulted to medium as a preview lumber. So you can leave those alone. So make sure your size is correct. So pause this video, open up Vcarve Pro and get your job set up, and then click OK and come back to the tutorial. All right, now that you got your job set up, you should have your sign the size you want. And we're going to insert some text. Actually, let's do the border first. Let's create a border. So if you're not doing a border, you can skip ahead to the next chapter. We're going to use the rectangular tool to draw a border. Now you have a couple options. The anchor point is where it's the start of the rectangle is going to be. In this case, it's 0.5 up, 0.5 over. And we have 3 different options for corners. I'm going to use the internal radius, and you can change the radius of the angle. I'll show you what that does here in a second. And then you can type in the size of the square you want, or you can just simply come over here and click and hold and draw what looks good. Okay, so then what you want to do to get that centered is back after you hit close on the align tool right here in the middle under transform. The top row is left right align, center both directions or up and bottom center. We want that to be centered. Okay, so we're going to hit close there. So now at this point, if you're drawing a border, go ahead and hit pause in the video and take care of that part of it. All right, now that you got your border drawn or you didn't want a border, let's move on to the text of the sign. We're going to use this big OT symbol for a text. And one of the things I've learned from doing these signs over the years is to make each row of text, each line of text a different row. That way you can do some editing. You can pick the style of letter you want. And we're going to make, and I like all capitals. So we're going to use that one there, and then I can position it approximately where I want, click off of it, and type in our second line or any extra lines, hit close. And then now I'm just going to roughly put it in position where I want. Remember, we can still use the alignment tool, left and right. We definitely don't want to center it up and down. So I'm going to get it positioned. What's cool is you can also use the arrow keys on the keypad to go up and down. And then sizing, keep it proportional, grab the corners and go from there. Another way you can size it, if it's highlighted, you click on the T, you can go back and edit it. You can actually type in the size you want it, 1.25, close, and go over here. Let's make that the same size. So if you really want to make sure that the one was 1.24, one was 1.27. So now they're both 1.25 in height. So they're equal in height. Okay. And I'm going to use my alignment tool and center that one left to right, center that one left to right. Kind of makes sense there. So now looking at this, it doesn't look quite right. The Warrior is the more predominant thing, so I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger and make this one a little bit smaller. Now let's go back to the centering. Whoops. So since I did that, I'm just going to click the up. The reason I was using the up key is it keeps it centered left to right. That's just a matter of preference. Okay. So there's some text that looks good. A lot of times on these signs, you'll see what's one of the words curved. So what we're going to do is use back to our drawing tool, and we're going to draw a curved line right through the middle. What you do is you click on the left, click on the right, and put a slight upward curve to it, or downward, whatever you choose. Hit close. Now I'm going to select the word I want to curve and the line I want to curve it to. And over here on the left, about the third of the way down, on the right. So left menu, this is all drawing tools. And by clicking it, it should automatically kind of find the line. You can maintain it. I can scale it. I can space the words out a little bit closer, further apart, above, on, below. Text on the other side. We definitely don't want that. Is there an offset distance? You can play with all these settings. I definitely like align to the curve. I mean, that's kind of the point of it. Scroll down. If your monitor is bigger, you may not have to scroll down each time. Click off, and then I want to get rid of that curved line by selecting it and hitting the delete key. Now you can see we're up in our border, so I'm going to bring that down. That's starting to look more like what I want. I still think this will look better if it had a graphic. So what we're going to do is if this is what you want, you can move on. You can skip the next chapter. But what we're going to do in this chapter is move on to inserting a graphic. Okay. So I'm going to highlight them both, move it over to the right. So I got room to put my graphic in. Okay. This can all be adjusted later. So my graphic is the saw blade with the warrior head in it, and they're not the same graphics. I'm going to have to do it twice. Okay. For some reason, it uses the bird. Okay. So if you haven't done so, you need to pause. You need to get the graphic that you're going to be used saved on the computer, downloaded to the hard drive. So take a moment, open up your Google Drive, download it to the desktop of the computer you're working on, and then you can come back to this step. Now that it's on the desktop of the computer you're using or the thumb drive, we're going to click this little folder, and it is insert, just so you know what it says. You hover over it, it says import a bitmap, which just means a drawing. And it should be in your desktop or downloaded full file. I'm gonna open up the saw blade, and it puts it right smack dab in the middle. All that is a pretty picture. So I'm gonna move the border. I don't want to do that. There we go. I'm just gonna move it up and out of the way. I'm also going to import the other part of my drawing because I know ahead of time I want the warrior head in the middle. So let's bring that in and get that up and out of the way. All right. So all these are is pretty pictures. We need to trace them. So that's our next step. We're going to click on the one we want to trace. And over here on the bottom left. Now that you got your drawings, if you haven't got your drawings imported, pause and get that part done. Okay, now that your drawings are imported, they're off the screen. Some people choose to do this step first, or you can do it last. It doesn't matter what order. We're going to use this little birdie tool on the left called Trace the Bitmap. So we're going to click that, and it's going to ask, is it a color design or is it a black and white? Hit preview, and it will show up with the lines it traced. If it looks good, click apply. There's really not much you can do to it. We'll edit it after the fact. Okay, apply and close. And we're going to do the same thing to the warrior head. That way this part's out of the way. Black and white logo again. Scroll down to a preview, apply it, close it. Now, it still looks like it's lines on top of your drawings and that, or the graphic, and that's exactly what it is. So go to the layer tab. If you didn't pause it, go ahead and trace them. Then come back to the layer tab and hit the light bulb next to bitmap, and now you have just the actual drawing lines. So it's a good time to pause. Make sure you got your everything traced, and come back when you're ready. Now that you're back, again, layers, there's tabs on the bottom. The light bulb turns the drawings on and off. We're working on layer 1, which is what we're drawing. So back to the drawing tab. I want to get rid of these lines in the middle because obviously I want to put the warrior head inside of there. So when I go to click on it, it's one solid thing. And if I hit delete, everything goes away, which I think is what you expected. So we need to ungroup this. So what we're going to do is click on it and right click, ungroup back to original. Now they're dots. So this will allow me to highlight or click on certain things. And you can hold down the shift so you can click more than one and delete that file right there. Okay. So that then creates, but I want to make sure they're grouped back together so that way it stays. So right click again, hit group. We ungroup and group by right clicking. This is its own little group. So we can just move it over here. And that looks pretty good. Now, if I want that perfectly centered, I can click on one, click on two, and then the top was for the board. This is for object 1, object 2. So it centered the warrior head inside that circle blade by using that one. Obviously, I could go up, I could go down, I could go right. Obviously, it looks best if it's centered. So we're going to close this one. Now we're going to position this where we want it. And you know what? Wouldn't it look better if the warrior head was the other direction? So let's use our drawing tools, and right here in the middle, there's a mirror. Okay, we're going to select what we want to mirror. Make sure that job center is not checked and mirrored copy is not checked. I'm going to show you what it does. We're going to flip it. So I created a copy and centered or flipped it based on the center. So we don't want to do that. We want to flip it in its place. So we're going to make sure those are unchecked. Flip horizontal. So now the warrior head will be facing the text. So it kind of looks a little better. So I can group the two together. That way when I move it, it moves it all. And we can resize it as one group. So up here on the top is your zoom tools. Or you can use the roller wheel on the mouse. Okay. That shows you what you're working with. That shows you your whole board. So size this accordingly. Make everything look. Sometimes you just got to freehand position it. All right. That one looks a little bit on the big side, so I'm going to squeeze that together. Center these two. Sometimes you just got to work, with it. Center 1 to 2. Move them within each other. There we go. That allows me to bring this one up and over just a little bit. And if you look, we got unequal gaps. So what we're going to do is take these 3 to this one and center them. Let's see. What it did is it overlapped it. So there's ways around that, but we're just going to freehand eyeball center this one using the arrow tools. All right, so far that looks pretty good. So pause, get your drawing done, and come back to the video once you're there, and we can actually make this a CNC, because at this point, all it is a pretty picture. It is not a CNC file. So once you're done, come back to this point in the video and click on the next chapter for exporting. All right, now that you're back, we need to make this from a pretty drawing file. Basically, this is pretty much an overpriced version of Paint. But what we need to do is get it to X, Y, and Z coordinates, and we do that by using the toolpath menu. You hover on it, it pops open, you go away. That gets kind of annoying, so if you click on it and hit the little push pin, it keeps them open. You can also close this one by clicking the push pin. There's a drawing tab, but I found through experience that sometimes you're going to want to modify some of the drawings. So again, pretty picture. These are all drawing tools. These are CNC directions. So there's no directions at this point. We have a couple things that you can use, and in this one we're going to do the V carving is what we're going to use mostly. If you want to cut a shape out or partially the way through profile, if you want to create a recessed area, we would use the pocket. Like if we did not want the warrior head in the middle, we could actually use a pocket, and the whole saw blade would be one recessed shape. We're not going to use drilling. We're not going to use inlay in any of these videos. So we're going to click on our text, the 2 words, and hit the word Vcarve or V. Okay. We want to start at 0 depth. So if it's not there, it always comes up with the last person's settings, the last time you open the toolpath. So start at 0 depth, which means 0 is the top of the board. Okay. So it kind of gives you a graphic of what you're looking for here. Flat depth is the maximum depth that we want it to carve. Remember, from router unit, it's 1/4 of an inch. So we're going to leave that at 1/4. If you want to pause and go set those 2, you can, or you can just do this all at once. The bit you're going to be using is a 60-degree 1/2 inch V bit. If it's not there, you can hit the select button and choose from the list of tools. Sometimes there's more, sometimes there's less. Select the one you want, hit the word or the select button. We are not going to use the clearance tool. Okay, uncheck that one. Clearance tool is if we wanted to clear out a large area. That would take forever with the V bit. So what it's going to do is say, let's use a flat bottom bit for most of it and then edge it with the V. We're not doing that. The letters are so tight. So make sure you uncheck that. It'll create unnecessary paths, so to speak, if you understand what I'm getting at. Don't worry about start points. Okay, come down here to name and name it, because it's otherwise it's going to be hard to. It's all going to say Vcarve 1, Vcarve 2. So Warrior Woodshop text and hit calculate. It's going to automatically jump to the 3D preview. Red lines mean where it is going to move. Blue is where it's going to carve. So go ahead and create a file for your text. And then when you're done, you can get anxious. I'm sure you want to hit preview, and it's going to show you what it's going to look like. Up here on the left, or the right, excuse me, is you can choose the color of the text if you want it, or you can use the natural wood. But I like to have a nice bright color. A lot of times it represents what I'm making. So there's that part. So pause, get that part created, and when you're done, click on this 2D tab and come back to your drawing. All right, so far all we've got to do is carving out the Warrior Woodshop. Let's let it carve the saw blade. And we need to ungroup these 2. So if you don't need to, you can do it all at once, but I'll explain why here in a second. So we're going to carve the saw blade. We're going to close that, use the Vcarve tool again. All right, start depth 0, maximum depth a quarter. See, all this should be left from the last time. You got to uncheck clearance because we don't want it to do the middle either. And we're going to come down here and name it saw blade. And in the right place. There we go. Calculate. That shows that one. You know how to preview. I'm going to skip that step, go back to 2D. Now, the reason I did not keep the warrior head in that same grouping is these are going to be very shallow cuts. Remember with the V-bit, the deeper it goes, the wider the cut. So for shallow cuts, it's not going to be very deep. And for most of you, you're going to be painting the letters and graphics. So by the time we sand it off, we could almost sand through the lines of this one. So we're going to cheat this one a little bit to make sure that we have room to sand. Okay, so close. We're still going to use the same Vcarve bit, but this time we're going to go to 0.03, which is a 32nd of an inch. Our max is still going to be a 1/4 inch deep, so you don't have to change there. Again, it all should be set. Uncheck the clearance and call this one Warrior Head. I didn't spell it right. All right, so you only do this when you have really thin letters and you're going to sand. If we weren't going to sand after painting, we just leave that at 0. So ask your instructor if you should do that or not. It's for thin letters. If you're doing the epoxy fill on the letters, you're going to want to do that to all of them because we tend to take off more with the epoxy. So that's for sanding. Calculate. There's the warrior head. So just show you where we're at. Okay, now we got to do the border. So go back to 2D one more time, and I'm going to click on there, close this, open up a Vcarve. We're just doing a line around it. Okay, and call that border. Calculate. Now you're probably scratching your head, wondering what's going on. It's going to cut all of that. I just wanted the border. And honestly, if you hit preview, it's not going to get you what you want. It's going to sit there and carve out everything you just carved in. So where did we go wrong? Let's check that. Close and hit the delete button. Yes, I want to delete that toolpath. And you're like, wait a minute, it's still there. We got to go on. The preview button is the bottom left. And reset gets us back. So now we can preview. Just to make you feel better. That way we're back to where we were. Okay, so let's go to 2D. What Vcarve is looking for is a left, right, and top and bottom. If you notice, the letters have that top, bottom, left, right. So it considers this border, that's the top, the bottom, the left, and the right. So what we need to do is create a secondary border, and trying to draw two shapes is a little bit of a challenge. So back to the tools over here on the left, there's an offset tool. So you want to, if you click on it, it's going to say you don't have anything selected. So we want to select the one we want to trace or offset. You got outwards, inwards, or both, and you have the dimension. I know from experience on this size of sign, it's 1/8 of an inch. Okay, offset there. So now we can group these two together and go back to our Vcarve menu and tell it to and start at 0, 1/4 inch deep, maximum. Call that border. We should be good there. Okay, so preview again. That is what we're looking for. Well, maybe. I think in my opinion, the word woodshop is just a little not pronounced enough. So in this chapter of the video, we're going to edit something that already exists. And let me show you what's going on here. Let's go back to 2D, click on the Warrior Woodshop, click the text tool, show my whole drawing. And all we gotta do is click bold. I think that makes it a little bit more pronounced. So let's go back to preview. Let's reset the preview and hit preview everything. And you're back to scratching your head going, I just clicked bold. Why isn't the woodshop word bold? Remember, drawing tools, CNC tools. We did the change in the drawing side. We didn't change it over here. So what a new person might do to it is delete it and reinstall it or recreate it. But they've thought about that because a lot of times you make changes under toolpath. Click on the toolpath tab at the top, recalculate. So if you made any minor changes, if you deleted something and add something, you're obviously going to have to create a new path. But if you just modified something like the size, you click on recalculate, it checks them all, adjusts what changes. So now let's reset. And the word woodshop's a little bit more bold. So hopefully that goes through how to create a sign with some text, some shapes, and inserting a graphic. Remember, the graphic needs to be simple coloring book style. Add the word line art, add the word coloring book, or a vector is what CNC files use. So it's already created, but you can trace them. Okay, so at this point, what you need to do is hit save. And if you notice, there's a little save button over here. That is for the CNC, and we'll do that after your instructor has a chance to check the file. If you have an improperly saved file, it could damage the CNC, damage a bit, ruin your work. And we'll show you here, and basically these are nothing but coordinates, so they're hard to decipher if you've got everything correct. So it's easier to preview it in this program. So you're going to go under the File tab and hit Save, and I'd like you to save it in this format. And I've already done one for practice. So you're going to use your last name, hyphen, and what the file is. It's going to tell me it already exists because, yes, I've already prepped this out for the video. So that is what you're going to, so now you're going to take wherever you save that, the desktop, the download folder, whatever. It should be a CRV folder. So it's in my downloads recently right there, right away, Warrior Woodshop sign. Okay, I will upload that to Google Drive and then attach the CRV file or the Vcarve file to Google Classroom. Okay, that's what I'll take, and I'll evaluate that so nothing, to hopefully eliminate some damage to the bit, the machine, or your sign. Well, if you made it this far, that probably means you think you're done, and maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Have you taken the drawing file from the left side of the screen, all those buttons, and opened up the right side of the screen with the toolpaths and exported each individual process? That's what I want to check to make sure you got the right bit, the right speeds, the right starting locations, the right depths, so we don't jam up the CNC, break a bit, or ruin your material and have to start over. So once we're back in the shop, you can start working on the size that you said it should be, or maybe the glue up for your tray. And once you get an approved comment back from me, that means we're ready to hit the CNC. So good luck. Hopefully everything went right. If you have any questions, be sure to email. If I'm in the room, raise your hand and I'll come over and help.